Channel is all about partnerships and all about trust and relationships. And that comes down to people. I can put the best program in place, but if my people don't have the relationships, or my people are not trustworthy, or I'm not trustworthy, or my upper management doesn't support the channel program and they're not trustworthy, the program's going to fail. And we've proven here we've quadrupled our results year over year, and we're on pace to do it again this year. So it's because we communicate very well, and the people that are on my team are trustworthy. Integrity is huge with me, trust and integrity in the program itself. And I'm fortunate my upper management, our CRO, Chris Conley, and our CEO, Spencer Mully, are very supportive of channel. And they will get on the phone all day long with a channel partner that hasn't, typically it's the larger opportunities. They'll get on the phone with them though.
Hello, welcome, and thank you for tuning into Channel Voices, the podcast for future channel leaders, where we learn the ins and outs of partner ecosystems through casual conversations with channel professionals from a variety of industries, partner types, and geographies. My name is Maciek, and I'm your host. Monica Walton, welcome to Channel Voices.
Thank you, Magic. How are you?
I'm very good, and thank you so much for coming onto the show. It would be great if you wouldn't mind just tell us who you are, a little bit about yourself, and maybe your channel background as well, please.
Sure. So Monica Walton, I'm Senior Vice President of Channel at Evoque, which is a data center solution company. We're based out of Dallas, but I'm actually physically based in Denver, Colorado. So I've been with the company about coming up on 3 years, and was hired to actually run the channel program. But my whole background, my entire career has been in the telecom space. So I've spent 12 years at Sprint, 5 years at Covad, not COVID, Covad, which was a DSL startup company. And then the last 15 years at CenturyLink, which is now Lumen, and had the opportunity to do something different, and came to Evoque almost 3 years ago to run the channel program.
And have you had much channel experience before you came to Evoque?
My background's a little interesting to be running channel because my background has been all in the direct space, running salespeople that competed and sold directly to enterprise customers. And at points in time, my team was selling against channel. So that was probably my first foray into channel, was to be competing against a channel partner, and that was the program at the time. Incented us to be very separate, which is not how I run my program today, by the way. That was my start of working with channel. And then I actually had an opportunity to be a chief of staff for one of the executives at the time it was level 3, which became CenturyLink, which became Lumen. And it was an opportunity to learn kind of more behind the scenes of how channel works. And I was in charge of biz ops, so the support backside of channel as well, to make sure that the program ran well. That was a unique opportunity to really learn from some elite leaders in the channel program, and really understand why they were doing things the way they were. And I use that to meld into how I run my program today.
Right. Very good. Thank you for that introduction. How did you find the transition from being in the direct sales, competing with channel, and going into a role where you actually are leading the channel strategy?
For me, I think it was, the word I would use would be, as a natural transition. So my background, as I mentioned, is all direct sales, right? But I understand the sales process. I understand enterprise business customers, anywhere from small all the way up to, I was on site 3 years with one of the top 3 banks. So, I've managed small to very large enterprise customers. So I understand the process, and I use those skills to apply it. So, when I'm talking to channel partners, I understand what they're going through because I've been through that. So I really melded all of that background into how I developed the program for my channel program here at Evoque.
And when you joined Evoke, was there already a channel strategy? Was there a channel program there, or were you hired to start the channel?
So there was a program started. Evoque is only about 5 years old, and we started when AT&T spun off their data centers. That was the start of Evoque. And there was a channel program that was started, but to be honest, it was, you can imagine back then it was a startup company, and their mantra was to get as many channel partners signed up as possible. And so I came in about a year and a half into it, and it was not the direction I would have taken it. So my first week in the role, I actually interviewed and met with all of the leaders at Evoque in Dallas and just asked them what's going well, what's not going well as far as channel. And I think back then, maybe 7 to 9% of sales were coming from channel. And my goal at the time was to bump that up to 30 very quickly. From that perspective, I interviewed everybody my first week, and it allowed me to really quickly see where the gaps were. So by the end of the first week, then I outlined, here's the structure of what I think we should have for our channel program. I ran it by our CEO, got his buy-in, and that was the core backbone of our program. From that point forward, then I started, when you come into a program, you want to make it your own. That's what I did. Started assessing first the team, the program itself, what pillars we were going to focus on, and then took it from there and grew it.
What was it like to inherit a program, but then also so quickly making decisions to change certain things, right? Or improve certain things? What was the reception like in the business? Was it hard to get your ideas through, or were people very receptive to the new approach, the Monica approach?
I think people were very receptive. I have found the channel to be very open arms. And I've been now working with channel people for roughly like probably the last 7 or 8 years. I don't have 30 years of channel direct relationships, right? But everybody that I've met has been wonderful to work with. And as long as you approach things, very common sense oriented and what that you think they would expect, things go very well. So, but I think one of the first things I saw was responsiveness. And so I focused my team. And by the way, I had to bring in a new team that
Okay.
had the experience and the professionalism that I was expecting for my team. And the number one thing I drove into their heads is when a lead comes in, we have to be responsive. We put in a process where we would register the lead, we would reach out to the sales organization. We have rules of engagement. So, based on size, we know exactly where to send that to. And that sales rep knows when they get a channel lead at Evoque, they need to be reaching out to the channel partner within hours. So usually we offer same day service as far as lead registration and response. Sometimes, many times it's within hours. So that was a number one differentiator that we instigated. Number two is I've learned with channel partners, don't mess with their money. so so we spent a lot of time just going through all of our channel commissions, making sure we were auditing, making sure they were accurate. A lot of times we were finding things that were missing commissions, and we actually went back and paid them. That also earned a lot of brownie points, if you will, and respect or trust. That was the other thing. I was trying to build trust with our program
For
because
sure.
integrity to me is huge. So I want to make sure if we're running a program, it's a program that they can trust because they're bringing us in to meet with their customers, right? So you want to make sure you're doing a good job with that and being responsive and then ultimately paying them accurately. And then the other big thing that I cleaned up was, as I mentioned earlier, they were just trying to sign on as many channel partners as possible because that was their mantra, get the
Yeah.
name out, right? I flipped that and we went from, the good old 80/20 rule. So we had over 150 partners signed up and we now typically work with about 25. So,
Okay.
and we're much more successful because we're giving that level of service that those 25 partners really expect and need.
I see that quite a bit, that when a startup thinks that they're ready to go and have a channel motion, the indirect sales motion,
Hmm.
they typically grab every single partner that they can just to get the name out there, get their own logo on a partner's website, and all that good stuff, right?
Right.
But then, can you actually scale it, right? Because when you are starting a channel program from scratch, you probably don't have a team of 20 people that will be able to look after those partners on a daily basis, right?
Right.
And
Right.
then you go and you sign up partners in the 100 plus. That very quickly might have a negative impact in terms of the brand, because out of a sudden you're not able to service all those partners on time.
Hmm.
Delays happen, trust is undermined then, and it can have really negative impact overall on the business. I am very happy to hear that that's something that someone mainly direct sales experience has quickly recognized, that that isn't necessarily the best thing to do. We need to look at the partners we have, possibly reevaluate them, and work with the ones that where it really makes sense for both parties, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Not just for one. It's not just for a vendor to get the logo out there. This
Hmm.
is a partnership. It should be it should be mutual partnership,
It
not
should.
just one way, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. I actually, we pulled recently, we pulled that long list, and for the last 2 years, I the ones that were signed up but never did anything with us, I've just kind of ignored them. But we actually recently just sent them notice to say, look, this is a two-way partnership. We haven't talked to you or heard from you in 2 years, so let's part ways. And it allowed us to really just focus on the channel partners that do want to partner. And we have made a concerted effort to make sure that we work with the master agents as well, the TSDs that are out there, because they have the scope or the bandwidth of the luxury of having multiple agents under them, right?
Yeah.
So span of control is greater there. So we work with most of the larger master agents out there, as well as some larger direct agents as well. But if somebody new comes in now to my program and they're a single agent, we actually encourage them to sign up under a master, because it just makes sense for us. I have a small team and a very, very senior team, a very experienced with relationships, but it's a small team. We can't be everywhere and give good service. So their jobs are to educate the channel partners on Evoque, what's new, what spiffs do we have out there, what promos we have out there, and really be in front of these channel partners as much as possible. So it makes sense to have that audience more targeted, so that we can be more effective for them.
And going back to the team, so when you inherited a program, there must have
Hmm.
been some sort of a team in
Hmm.
place, but you did say that you needed to build a team. So so you recognized certain things that needed to be changed in the channel program. Did you also recognize some needs for change on the team, and that's why you decided to build the new team? Or is it a mixture of both, a little bit of the old and some new people as well?
Actually, at this point in time, I have changed over the entire team.
Okay.
So it's hard, when you come in, you're dealing with people, right? And you want to be very cognizant that this is their job, but you also want to make sure that the team that you're inheriting is on the same page with you and will meet the expectations of what you're driving for your program. And through time, I got to know the existing team. And whether it's just, through time that I set the expectations and they weren't able to achieve those, we quickly worked through that. So within about 6 months, I was able to bring in people that I trusted, that had, 20 plus years of relationships within the channel. because, I'm a leader and I didn't have the 20 plus years of relationships. I had 20 plus years of knowing how to run a program, knowing how to run a sales organization. And I applied those skills. And where I was a little bit, I always believe as a leader, if you're weak in some spot, that's where you bring your team in to fulfill where you might be not, as experienced. So that's what I did. I brought in two channel directors that I knew, didn't know them that well, but I knew they had the experience. And the three of us sat down, and that's how we started our program. And I think I mentioned earlier, initially when I came in, 7 to 9% of our sales at Evoque were coming from the channel program.
Hmm.
Last quarter, we're now at 60.
Wow.
So it's been a huge, massive shift, I should say, over the last 2 years. And it's because of, all the things we've been talking about, focusing on the top 25 data center focused channel partners, bringing in people that are experienced and have the relationships that can pick up the phone and quickly, identify opportunities. So it's worked very well so far. And of course, my upper management wants me to do even more. So we'll see what we can do as we go into 2024.
Very good. That's very impressive results in such a short time period and for
Thank you.
such a young company. We spoke about those changes that you have applied. You mentioned filtering the partners when you came in because there was 100 plus. We talked a little bit about the team, what changes you made there. What was the change, if you can put a finger on it? Which one change that you have implemented drove that success?
I personally think it's the people that I have on my team. And I'll be honest, this year I lost one person on my team. And that happens. You always have to keep a bench warm. And to be honest, we were able to replace that person very quickly with somebody who was just almost as experienced. So we didn't skip a beat, which was good. But you also, as a leader, you have to anticipate that there may be some turnover. And it's unfortunate because when somebody leaves, if they're doing a great job, it's a big loss, right? But I was fortunate I was able to backfill that very quickly. So to me, it's the people. Channel is all about partnerships and all about trust and relationships. And that comes down to people. I can put the best program in place, but if my people don't have the relationships, or my people are not trustworthy, or I'm not trustworthy, or my upper management doesn't support the channel program and they're not trustworthy, the program's going to fail. And we've proven here we've quadrupled our results year over year, and we're on pace to do it again this year. So it's because we communicate very well, and the people that are on my team are trustworthy. Integrity is huge with me, trust and integrity in the program itself. And I'm fortunate my upper management, our CRO, Chris Conley, and our CEO, Spencer Mully, are very supportive of channel. And they will get on the phone all day long with a channel partner that hasn't, typically it's the larger opportunities. They'll get on the phone with them though. And we will give that level of support to show our commitment to the channel program.
That's great to hear. Obviously, that support from C level is so important when it comes to channel.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, they hold the key to a lot of things that you would like to do, and you need them to be behind you and recognize the opportunity that's out there. If they were to say yes to certain things, right?
Right.
So it's very important. So you talked about the revenue increase in terms of percentage, indirect versus direct, and how you quadrupled it year on year. How else do you measure your partner's performance today?
So we named our program Accelerate, and we have these Accelerate awards. So quarterly, we recognize the top two or three. We'll say we look at the results, and if there's two that just really killed it, and the next one is further down, then we'll just do two awards. But we measure that based on total contract value, and sales. So that's our initial one. And so a channel partner to win the award, they might be the top leads that came in converted to sales based on total contract value. So that's the initial one. Where I'm really focused now is it's been interesting in the market. We're seeing a huge shift in the market over the last, say, 3 to 6 months with artificial intelligence, AI really hitting the market strong, especially in data center business. They're looking for large amounts of capacity, space, and power. And so it's interesting, like last year, we would see a handful of large multi megawatt opportunities.
Hmm.
This year, we have them coming out our ears. So, from that perspective, it's been a really big shift in the market. And so, having that support that I talked about earlier with our CEO and our CRO, I think that's a little bit unusual for a provider, service provider like us to be able to say, hey, if you bring an opportunity in and it's a larger one, we're going to have our CEO on the very first call or our CRO on the very first call with you in partnership. Let's talk to the customer and let's identify. And if a deal can be made, we will find a way to make it happen. So that's the level of support that we bring.
So, am I right in understanding that you co-sell with partners rather than let partners sell on their own, or is it a mixture of both?
It's a flexibility, I
Okay.
guess, is the word I would use. We let the partner tell us how they want to work. Eventually, we want to talk to the customer, but the partner, if they're bringing their customer to us and it's a lead, we're not going to disrupt that partnership that they already have built with their end
Hmm.
user customers. So we will let them tell us how do you want to work with that end user customer, whether it's arm in arm or through the channel partner, and then they talk to the customer. But eventually, we do like to talk to the customer ourselves. And then, as far
Perfect.
as another KPI, I wanted to circle back on that. Where I'm really focused right now is with that market shift of going to large. We've really seen the smaller business, which I think is meat and potatoes. It's a transactional business, say 100 kilowatt and less. That sort of business has really slowed down. So I think everybody's so excited about these big deals, but they're not as focused on the smaller business. And I don't want to lose sight of that. So we are working to try and actually incent the agents to bring us more of the smaller deals as well, because if you can imagine, you have a data center and you have these bigger chunks going away. Well, guess what? You have these smaller chunks in between, and you can Tetris that by
Yeah.
bringing in small customers, single 1, 5, 10 cabinet type deals to just put them in place in the little gaps in the data center. So we continue to have opportunities there as well. So from a KPI perspective, I'm leaning towards some sort of promotion contest. I don't know yet. We're working on that, but we would like to incent them to really don't lose sight of the small biz as well.
Yeah, that's perfect. So I was going to ask if you measure partner also on the new logos that they bring, right? I'm sure they expand the existing install base and everything else. They
Hmm.
do. It's very easy to lose sight of the small things because everybody wants to land that whale, right?
Right. Right.
Everybody wants to reel that one in and be the
Yeah.
hero. But then there's all the other stuff, which is really the baseline that keeps the lights on of a company, and it has to be trickling through regularly. So
Right.
yeah, I see that. I see that a lot. That partners might be incented on new logo wins, regardless of the value of the
Hmm.
actual deal. Of course, there are targets when it comes to TCV, ACV, however you measure it, but it is important to bring in multiple customers in a quarter rather than just one large one, right?
Right. Right.
You also
That's
have the opportunity to expand the smaller ones, right? I mean,
mhm.
that's how it works. Land and expand is a very common model that works for majority of companies in the tech business.
Right. Exactly. We actually just recently rolled out a spiff that does incent for new logos. So I won't give the specifics here, but if somebody's interested, have them reach out to me because we do want to not lose sight of growing new business. It's always easier, I think, to sell to existing customers versus landing that new logo. But that's critical to continue to grow your business, whether it's a small customer or that big whale, like you mentioned.
Yeah. And I'm just thinking the changes that you have implemented and where you are now, have you measured the impact it had on the cost of sale? Because having only single digits going through channel versus 90% coming in direct, I mean, that has to be a big enough direct team making a lot of phone calls to big and small potential customers. And now all of a sudden, you do have partners that go and do that on your behalf, pretty
Hmm.
much, right? Obviously, you do jump on the calls where a partner needs you to jump on, but it must have a huge impact on the cost of sale for a company like Evoque.
Yeah, I work with our finance department, and just recently as a matter of fact, it's funny you asked that because we just got a EBITDA updated report on channel, and all I'll say is channel is very healthy. So from that perspective, yes, we do look at that in comparison, and so as I mentioned earlier, our CEO would love for me to drive more and more business from channel. So we do measure that though, because I think it's important to consider all of the costs both ways and really look at that to determine, where it makes sense and where you're going to throw your support for the company as well.
Fantastic. This is a question I ask of every single guest. I
Okay.
think you know it's coming, but Monica, what's the one thing you wish you knew before you started your career in channel?
I would probably say I wish I would have started it sooner. Um, that's probably the biggest thing is I have loved, even though my time in channel has been shorter than a lot of people in channel, I've loved it. I really enjoy working with the various channel personalities out there, if you will. And running this program has been challenging. It has been fun. It's been exciting. We've had some big wins. I wished I would have done this years ago. And I don't know, who knows, maybe to the point down the road that I would have had my own channel program, or my own agency, who knows. But I also think that the experience that I had gives me a unique perspective coming into this because I am, a little bit newer into the channel program, but with my background being from the chief of staff, so having that inside track of learning and then the 20 plus years of selling direct, I think I bring a unique perspective to the role and probably a fresh perspective too. And everybody in channel's been open arms. Really have enjoyed building some relationships with some key people throughout, and they're wonderful to work with. So it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much. I heard that one before from some people. I wish I started earlier than that, but in your case, I mean, this is backed up by a lot of evidence and the successes that you're having at Evoke right now. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your experience and your expertise with us. And we wish you continued success with Evoke. And let's see, can you bring it to 80 next year? To
Oh,
80%?
don't,
I'm not sure
don't
if
tell.
that's what you've been asked yet, but
Yeah, don't talk to my CEO about that, please. But no, I appreciate it. We're going to continue to grow here at Evoke, and I appreciate spending the time with me to, understand the program and what we're trying to accomplish here. And I look forward to talking to you again in the future.
thank you very much, Monica.
Thank you.
And that's a wrap for this episode. I do hope you found it valuable, and if you did, please make sure to subscribe and leave a review. You can also follow Channel Voices Podcast on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook, or just visit channelvoices.com where you can send me a message or leave a voicemail. All of the links are listed in the show notes, and once again, I appreciate you tuning in today. Until next time.